as I was saying before, it's been about 10 years since I've done a live. We used to do these all the time, but it is a lot of work. And obviously you guys know how much goes into our classes. They're very different from YouTube tutorials and they're very, very in-depth. So it's going to be a lot of fun today, but I'm sure you can appreciate the difficulty of doing this more often. But we are here today because it is our 11th birthday. So 11 years of doing our coloring classes for markers and pencils. So I can't believe how long it has been altogether in our community. I'm so incredibly grateful for all of you. So thank you so much for making our community as special as it is, and especially for supporting my classes during this hard time. Okay, so you're joining me here today for our crayon challenge, and I have all my lovely little crayons here. So if you are just joining Kit and Clouder, or you've been a community member only recently, we used to do crayon challenges way back when we started. Now, the reason for this is that with crayons, you can't be perfect. So our whole focus at Kit and Clouder and during our classes is that we want to work on letting go of perfectionism. We want to enjoy this process and all of the stress benefits that coloring brings to us. And that can be really, really hard. It's really hard for us to sometimes let go, especially when life is really stressful. We place all this pressure on ourselves to create perfect art that it can almost paralyze us with moving forward. We get so focused on results that not only does it stop us from doing something like a class because we feel all this pressure inside, but it can actually stop us from enjoying our hobbies overall. So the whole point of crayons is we cannot get them perfect. The harder we try to get them perfect, the more imperfect they become. So doing a challenge using only crayons is about letting go. It's a couple of things. So firstly, I want to explain, we use markers and pencils in our classes, and we can get very caught up on needing every single color, all the fancy brands, and hundreds of pencils and markers. They don't make us better at coloring. It's not going to make us any better by having all those fancy supplies or by you having the same supplies that I have. So even just these $2 wax crayons here, these are just the Crayola ones. I have the 64 box. But just something like this is literally, you could do a whole class in these, and it's going to be the same technique. So you don't need fancy supplies. And again, crayons aren't perfect. They're bumpy, they're hard to blend, and they're going to be a really great art therapy exercise for us in letting go, embracing that imperfection, and trusting this process. We do not need flawless coloring to be proud of our results, and the mistakes don't take away from the joy of creating or the value that we're learning. So that's why I want us to use crayons today. Hopefully all of you have come with some crayons that we can play with. Now, in saying all of that, you'll remember in our Facebook group when I shared my colorings, this is my colored wax crayon one. I also have my monochromatic. That was just done with one crayon. So I'm going to give you guys a choice. Which would you like to do together today? Would you like to learn how to do this monochromatic? And again, remembering that what we learn here today, you can transfer it and do with your markers or your pencils. Technique is going to be a big focus today, and it's going to absolutely apply to your favorite medium, even though we're using the crayons. So we can do the one crayon challenge, or we can do the colored crayon challenge. It's up to you. So I'm keeping an eye on those comments to see what the majority of you are kind of saying. And again, today, like I was just saying, I'm really going to focus on the theory, the foundations of art, because I think, and hopefully I'm wrong, but I know a little bit that sometimes listening to a class where I'm chatting, and you guys are like, I just want to get started with the coloring. I feel like maybe we might skip over some of those important things at the start of your class videos. So since you're live with me and you're stuck with me here today, and hopefully you're still watching, it's going to allow us to actually cover some of that really, really important theory that's going to help you progress to the next level. Oh, I'm looking at all the comments here. There's a lot for the monochromatic, which I wasn't actually thinking. Okay, well, if you guys want to do monochromatic, do we want to do it in the sepia colorway, like in the browns, or should we pick another fun color? Totally up to you guys what you'd like to do. I'm really excited by that, actually, because I thought you'd all pick the colored version. I think the learning how to do monochromatic is really helpful because, again, when you go to do a class, we can get really caught up on needing all of our supplies to perfectly match the teachers. But again, it's not really teaching us anything, and we don't want to become really good at copying. We want to become good at learning to use our supplies and learning those foundations and really having that in our skill set. So realistically, you could pick up any one of my coloring classes and have just one blend of markers or pencils and do any of them. So that's why I really like the idea of doing the monochromatic, because I want you guys to get comfortable with changing things. I don't want you to get really good at emulating me. I want you to get really good at learning technique, at taking the self-care time. All right, everyone has picked one color, so let's just go with the one color challenge here today. I'm going to I'll do a sepia blend. It'll make it a little bit more, I think, accessible for everyone. So you can pick any color here today. Again, remember, it's not about having the same as me. So I just want you to pick one crayon. Now, this is another really good art therapy exercise. When you feel really blocked and you really don't know what you want to do or how to start a project, you grab all of your supplies out. So you can grab all of your markers or pencils, and in this case, we're using our crayons. And then you close your eyes. And so I want you to close down your eyes, take a really nice big deep breath in for 4, and hold it for 4, and then let it go for 4. So we're trying to slow down our nervous system, be really present and relaxed. So taking any pressure off when we come to do our coloring here today. Now, with our eyes still closed, we're going to pop our hand over our supplies and just touch them. Touch and feel your supplies. Feel how they feel under your fingers. And sometimes as we're doing this, we can sort of start to feel a little bit of heat under our fingers. And I know this can feel a little funny if you've never done sort of mindful exercises, can feel a little bit like, woo, what are we doing here today? But you should start to feel a little bit of warmth and energy. And I just want you to pick a color, just any color that you feel drawn to while your eyes are closed. And that's going to be the color that you use here today. And that's a really, really great tip when you do your marker or pencil coloring. You can use that, so say I picked this one here, but I might create my blend around that. So we know when we have a blend, we've got our color here, we're going to go one darker, one lighter, so we can represent our light source. In our crayon challenge, we're just going to be using one crayon here today. So a little bit different from that, but I wanted to explain this technique so you could use it in your everyday coloring as well. So it's a really, really fun art therapy exercise. Okay, so hopefully you've all picked your crayon here now. Now, let's chat about a little theory. Now, one of the most important things when you come to do your coloring is you're going to think about light source. Now, this is the most important thing. The thing that people come to me the most and say they want to learn is how to create depth in their coloring. And the way that we do this is we think about light source. And I put this at the start of every single one of your class videos because it is the most important thing to go over. If you're looking at your coloring and you go, I don't know how to start this, I don't know where to begin, put that part of your class video on. It's going to help you with your steps. And let's go over that now for those of you who haven't done a class. So when we are looking around the room, the way that we can see things is because of light. So light hits our objects and makes them visible to our eyes. We want to imagine when we're doing our coloring that our light rays are coming down from above over our project, rather than coming from, say, one side. We're thinking about something like the lights in the ceiling or the sun up in the sky. It's got a huge cone of light that comes down over our entire image. So the way that we approach this is we look at our image or our object that we're going to be coloring, and we're looking for any part of this that would be popping up toward us. Now then we imagine those light rays are coming down and they're hitting all of your raised up surfaces first. Now we call those highlights. That is where your lightest colors are going to be. Now the opposite of a highlight is your shadow. It's the parts of your object or image that are slanting away from the light, curving down, or just generally a lot lower. Now, between our highlight and shadow, we have what's called the midtone of our object. Now, midtone is generally considered the true color of the object because it's not affected by light or shade. So you can always start your color blends with your midtone, like I was explaining before. You could pick what is your midtone color, add a darker color for the shadow, and add a lighter color for your highlight. And that's how you create a color blend in any brand of marker or pencil. It is truly that simple and easy to create your blends. And I've got a bunch of other videos on the website or on my YouTube as well that you can have a look for more information on that. But I wanted to go over that today because it's going to inform all of our coloring. All of that light source information that I just explained is applicable to your colors. We are laying down shading to show where that shadow is, where the light is hitting. And that's how we approach coloring. So once we understand light source, we understand where color needs to go. Now that takes a lot of time, a lot of practice, and a lot of topics. So a lot of you will know that we have our monthly coloring classes at Kid and Clouder. So I do one class for markers, one class for pencils. There is no sign-up requirement, so you can do one class or as many classes as you like. You do get bonuses if you stay on though. But the point of the monthly class is I'm taking you through all different topics and techniques. And I'm taking you through these different objects and forms so that you can learn techniques like light source on anything at all. And that's when it starts to make a bit more sense and it starts to sink in when you're doing things that you wouldn't normally do. Okay, so let's get coloring. I know everyone's itching. I know I can talk too much. So I've got a color here. Mine's mahogany, but again, please use whatever color you like. We're going to get started on applying all of our shading with our crayons here. Now again, remembering that crayons are not going to be perfect, so we may have a little bit of imperfection as we do our shading. The key here is I'm going to hold my crayon very, very lightly and just lay down this base color. Now I'm going to be applying all of my shading in the shadow areas first, and I'll be leaving my highlights just as white. So starting with this color that you've picked, I'm looking at her face and I'm thinking about what parts are underneath, which parts are lower down. And one thing that I didn't touch on before is very, very important. This is probably the thing that I see most people need in their coloring that they haven't yet learned about. And that's something called cast shadow. So everyone kind of knows what highlight and shadow is, even if you don't know that terminology. But cast shadow is something that we need to learn. So a cast shadow is when we have something that sits in front or above something else. So you can see the shadow on my hand there, right? So that is a shadow that's cast from the crayon that's sitting above my hand. So it's showing the distance between these objects. The closer they are together, the darker and harder that shadow is, and it's right below. And as I lift up, you can see it becomes softer and more dispersed, showing the distance between. That is 100% how you're going to achieve a lot more depth in your coloring. And we'll talk about that as we get started here. So if I look at my image, I want to look firstly, what is sitting in front of her face? And I can see the hair is sitting straight over the face area. So I'm going to come in with this color and just apply straight underneath. Now, cast shadow, I always want to be nice and thick and dark. However, with our crayons, it's more important that we go soft. So I'm applying it thickly, but I'm applying it softly. And as I get in toward this highlight area, I'm softening my pressure down even more so I can get a color fade. As you can see, I'm coming the whole way around that hairline now. And I've just printed my image today on regular printer paper. Crayons don't really need anything fancy. The printer paper has a good amount of soft tooth that I can lay it into. So the shadow that I've popped here is showing that the hair is sitting off the face. Now I'm going to pop in and I'm going to apply to the sides of the face. The face curves around, it's not flat. So as it curves around, we're entering into our shadow zone. We're curving away from our light. So I'm applying in and around that face area. And again, I'm making sure that I just soften out. Things like the eyelid here, we know that that would have a little crease. So we're going to come around that, showing that the crease is lowered down. Even things like our eyebrow would also have a little bit of shading to it as well. Now you can see my crayon is actually kind of sharp. You can sharpen these up in your sharpener. I have a Kent battery operated sharpener that I sharpen mine in. All right, now I'm going to come along our jawline. Now when I do the jawline here, I'm actually going to leave a tiny little bit of white just along that very edge. Now that's going to be a little bit of reflected light. So as I have the very, very edge of my jaw and it's sort of curving around, imagine the light sort of hitting this part here and bouncing off a little, creating a little bit of reflected light. It's going to help the jaw stand out from the neck area, and it shows that we have quite a strong direction change as well. Okay, I'm coming into the cheeks. Now I'm going to apply a bit more color than maybe you're used to applying. When we do the cheeks, I want to think about those highlight areas that we talked about before. So I'm basically applying my color in my shadow areas, bringing it toward our highlights, our lightest parts, which remember are the parts that are raised up. So raised up areas on my image here are going to be apples of the cheeks, the bridge of the nose, the middle of the forehead, the tip of the nose. So I'm shading toward these areas. So if the apples of my cheeks are the lightest, that means that my shadow is coming in and around to define that area. So I'm actually going to bring this color up and under my eye, and I might leave just a little pop of white under there, a little bit of reflected light. And you can see I'm starting to curve around and create this shape in the cheek, the apple of the cheek there. We can even actually start to come in and connect this in with the lip. And see how I'm starting to build the contouring in the cheeks. Now, skin or anything that you color always looks funny when we're in like the halfway process. It's really important that we don't judge our work while we're learning or while we're halfway through anything. Trust the process and keep building up that color. That's a really, really important lesson because it's very tempting to go, this looks wrong, and to throw it out and restart. We don't learn anything by restarting. We learn by finishing and assessing and understanding. Okay, I'm coming into the nose area now. Now the nose is protruding forward and sitting forward of our face. So I'm going to pop straight around the side of our nose and build up that bridge. Now you can feel on your own face, the shading in the bridge of the nose actually extends up towards your eyebrow line. So I'm extending that up quite high toward that eyebrow, and I'm not leaving it as a line. I want to think of this as shading. I'm casting a shadow back and around the nose. So my color is actually extending quite far out here. I'm keeping my pressure still quite soft as I do all of my shading. Now, coming into the side of the face, the left side is slightly turned from us. So that overall is going to end up darker. So I'm actually applying quite a lot of this color into the left side of the face. And you can see I'm building it up to, again, leave that little highlight in the apple of the cheek. Coming around the nostril there, I'm going to curve that in toward the center, and we'll apply shading out again from that side. I know this can feel a little scary because when we do our coloring, typically I'll see people not really bring any darker colors through this main area of the face. So be a little bit brave with your darker colors here now. And remember, it doesn't matter what your shading actually looks like here today. All that matters is that you're learning and you're taking away some new techniques that you can practice. That's the whole point of a lesson. It's not about how good you can get it. It's not a test in that today. All it is an opportunity to learn new things and give you something to practice to improve. Now I'm coming in toward the center, and you can see I'm lightly building up. I'm applying a very, very soft pressure, and again building into the apple of the cheek, letting that color fade into the remaining white of our highlight. I'm barely touching the crayon to the page here. Sorry, my voice is still not the best. You can tell I'm still recovering from being quite sick these last few weeks, so trying my best here. I'm also going to do a little bit of shading over the bridge of the nose, over the tip, so we can make that tip look like it's a lot lighter. And that's popping forward as well. Now I'm also going to extend the shading that I did in the forehead, coming in a little further. And then we're going to close that gap in our forehead area. We don't want a huge, big open space. Remember that your midtone is your main color of the object, and you have your lightest only for your most raised up highest areas, and your darkest for your most lowest areas. So we don't want to actually add the lightest color everywhere, because all you're going to be explaining then is that everything is the same height. We want to show differences in levels as we do our coloring. Okay, so she's obviously looking a little funny at the moment. We've done our shading basically so it's all that mid-tone level, and then I'm going to come back and add in more shadings to create that contrast and to create the shadows. What I'm going to do here though is I'm also going to add shading to the eyes and the lips. That's going to help to ground her, make her look a little less scary. I'm also just going to check our comments as well, see if anyone has any questions at the moment. Feel free to pop them in. Looks like everyone's okay for the moment. All right, so with your color here now, I'm just going to add a little bit of shading into my eyes, and I'm going to come up toward the top of our iris area, and my color is going to be darker in there. And I'm going to blend down toward the bottom and get a little bit lighter. Having it darker at the top actually helps to control the gaze. Now I've used a lighter color than I did originally on my monochromatic. I'd like this to be even darker, but we're working with what we've got here today. And we can do just a little shading into the eyeball as well, just really soft. When we work with monochromatic coloring, we're working with value of color. So value is actually how light or dark a color is. When we want to create something that's lighter, we use a lighter, softer pressure or a lighter version of the blend. When we want to show something that's darker, maybe like our lip here, we're going to come in a bit heavier and lay down more of that color So we can really show that it's a darker hue overall, even though we're using still that same monochromatic blend. I like to extend out the sides of the lips as well. You could even do just like a touch of that curl there. And you can see I'm coming all the way around that lower lip. And I'm going to do some little strokes down. Coming into our top lip now. And my aim here is I'm trying to leave a little pop of white to either side of that top lip and through the middle of the bottom lip. So again, the little raised up areas there. I've got a pencil duster over here. I'm just going to dust off the excess wax. Okay. I'm just going to refresh my chat and make sure I haven't missed any questions in our group while everyone catches up. I think there are no questions so far. Feel free to ask anything if things don't make sense or you'd like more clarification as well. That's the best opportunity about the live. We don't get a lot of chance to do this in class as well. So okay, so you can see I've used a lot more pressure as I've colored the lips, and that's really standing out against the skin in the background now. But now I'm going to come through and I'm going to darken up my shadows in this area, make it a bit more consistent and make those levels really stand out. Now I'm going to try and sharpen my crayon. My sharpener has been a bit unhappy with me lately, so we'll see how we go. This is the sharpener that I use. It's a Kent sharpener. I've got a smaller hole which I use for my colored pencils, and this larger one here that my crayon can go through. And I just pop it in. It's not going to work for me. It should sharpen, but it didn't really work for me, so I just manually did that today. So now to add a bit more shading in my shadow areas, I'm coming in and I've increased my pressure just slightly in the very, very shadow area. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over that edge and I'm going to essentially fuzzy it up. So those of you who do my pencil lessons will recognize this technique. It's very, very similar to how we color with pencils. So we're coming back and adding a bit more depth and then just fading it out so we don't get that hard line. Now be wary of coming in with too much pressure too quickly with crayons. That's going to make it quite waxy and hard to fade out. So we're just building this up slowly. And you can see I'm just focusing this exactly where we laid down our shadow color initially. So maybe the color underneath that we did firstly is a little thicker and extends a little further in than what I'm doing now. That's our mid-tone and it's showing that true color of the object, so it extends further than my shadows actually would. I'm going to darken up along that jawline. So you're looking for your real shadow areas at the moment, coming through and darkening just those up. If you have any wax buildup, you can kind of just rub it on your hand. So you can see here, I might be darkening up areas that you I'm maybe a little nervous to do, but I'm thinking about where those lowest points are, where it would be darker, where I'm trying to show level. I'm sitting on a bit of an angle as I do this, so you can see under my hand. So I can't quite see the angle of what I'm doing, but that's okay. That's what lives are for fun. So if it doesn't look quite right, that's okay. And I don't really mind when we're doing a coloring. If mine doesn't look the same as my original, if I make some mistakes, it's absolutely okay as well. Because again, remember, every time we color, it's a chance to learn. It's not about how perfect we can get it. And I think that's one big thing that we often forget is the point of doing this is not to create something that could be hung in a gallery. It's to take time for you. In this busy, stressful, overwhelming life, it's finding these pockets of time, even if it's just 10 minutes at a time, where you can switch off from everything around you and just focus on your self-care, just on stepping back, quieting all that noise. And that's what helps us to be more productive, more centered, to give more of ourselves to others. It's when we are all go, 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 and no, I don't have time for this. I have to keep doing my to-do list. I need to do this and that for everyone else. That's when we feel so drained and so depleted. So it's really important that we appreciate these pockets of time for self-care and that we don't place pressure or expectation on what we're doing. Sure, it's great if every coloring we made we could use and we want to hang it up, but it's not realistic. And I want to always liken this back to learning something like a musical instrument. Think about the fact that if we were to go and learn an instrument, we would have this understanding that we're not going to go in and be able to play every song right away. We know that. We know we have to learn technique and, we're going to fumble over the song quite a few times and we're going to need help from our teacher and understanding how the songs work and learning foundations maybe before we can even play a song. So why do we have all this pressure when it comes to coloring? Why is this any different? It's a skill set of technique and foundation to learn. So it's important that we understand that it's going to take time. And that even if you do a coloring you don't love, it doesn't mean it's a waste of time. It doesn't mean that we don't get all of those amazing benefits from an activity like this. And when we feel stressed or we feel frustrated at our coloring, it's not actually the coloring. That's a big thing. That's one of the most important things that I learned early on, is when we feel stressed and frustrated, it's because we haven't met a goal or expectation that we've set ourselves. We feel like we're failing, even if we're not. So it's not the activity that needs to change. It's our mindset and our approach. We need to think about our why and understand those pressures and what we may be placing on ourselves. And you can see she's starting to come together now as I go through all of these steps. It's starting to make a bit more visual sense. It still looks funny because all we've got on the page right now is just this face. So we need to give context. We need the rest of the image to be colored to understand how it's all going to work together. And to explain that to you, I'm just going to bring you back to the original. So this is where we're at right now. And that's where she ends up. So see how it makes more sense when we start to do things like hair and everything else sort of gives that context. Whereas right now, all we have is this like contrast against all the white. So of course it looks funny at this halfway point. All right, I'm checking out the comments while everyone catches up. Make sure you're happy with that blend. We're going to move on and we can always come back and add more depth as well. Okay, so Allison, do you find small circles is the best way to color with crayons, or is that just your pencil habit? I think doing the circles makes it easier to control pressure. So we want to make sure that we're not coming in, and let me grab a different crayon and show you at the base. I show you this sometimes in pencil class. When we're going back and forward like this, it's easy to get caught up on I'm going back and forward. And now all of a sudden I've made this hard line. And it's very hard to fade out a line that's quite hard. But if I'm doing my circles, I'm kind of less able to place pressure unless I'm kind of going like this, which I can feel automatically is too hard. So if I'm doing small, soft circles, I'm able to kind of control that back a little bit. Another tip, if you're very heavy-handed, that works for both your crayons and your colored pencils, is hold it further back. Don't hold it so close to the tip. I hold it to the tip because I've developed that control over my medium over the years that I've been doing this. But when you hold it back, you can't actually place as much pressure down. So you're instinctively going to be lighter. So that's a little tip if you are someone that struggles. If you have done this though, and you do have that hard line, again, same for pencils, all you need to do is come in very, very softly and just rub over that edge. So in pencils, I call this fuzzying up the edge. You'll see me talk about this in your videos. You can see there I can get a little bit of a fade, but I can keep controlling my pressure until I can really get that line to fade into the highlight. So that's going sort of back and forward, altering my pressure and smoothing it out. So you can still smooth out from that point, and it's just the control on the medium. Now, control only comes with practice. And that's the big thing when we get to doing fine lines, and whether you're a markers user or a pencils user, people can get frustrating, oh, my lines are still so thick. But it only comes with control, and control only comes with practice and time. So try not to get too caught up on how perfect you can make that whilst you're learning. It will get there, but it will get there in time. That is the most long-winded way to explain your answer, your question. All right, so I think that's the only question that people have had. Hopefully you're all enjoying this. I know I chat a lot. I think that's one thing that sets our classes apart. I'm chatting at least about the theories, but I do like to have a good chat about what we're doing and also about the confidence side, because I want to cover everything for you all. Let's pop into our neck area now. We look at the face sits on top of the neck. Now remember, when something is on top of something else, what do we have? We have cast shadow. Cast shadow shows the distance. So that's what we always want to be looking for. This is so important. I want you to take this away to any image at all that you're going to color after this lesson. I want you to look at your image and think, what is sitting in front or above here? The head is above the neck, so we're going to come straight underneath and apply a nice big thick cast shadow around the head. Now I tip the front shadow down a little bit because her face is tipping down. So if I imagine light rays sort of coming through, I'm imagining her chin there is sort of blocking the light from hitting this part of the neck. So rather than being a straight shadow, we do get this little tipping point where the chin would be blocking some of that light from hitting as well. And you can make this cast shadow quite dark and quite thick. Now I think today I'm only going to go through the hair after we do the skin, just because I'm aware that this is taking quite a time for you all. So I'll leave you all to color the outfit yourselves, and you can always ask me any questions as well in our Facebook group. And one thing that I do want to draw attention to is that our classes, even our free ones, always come with free one-on-one private tutoring. So what a lot of people may not know is that Kit and Clouder is literally just me. So I don't have any staff or anyone who helps do stuff except for my two lovely ladies who are also students like you guys in our Facebook group. You may see them, Pam and Joan. They're so lovely, and they've just offered to help moderate the group while I sleep in our Facebook group. But apart from that, Kit and Cloud, or all the graphics, all the videos, all the everything is really me. So The benefit of that is when you get your free private tutoring with your classes and even your free classes, that's only with me. No one else is seeing your work. You don't need to post on Facebook. You don't need to share anywhere. And over the 11 years that I've been doing this, I've really spent a lot of time with a lot of people going over, tips and tricks to help you feel more confident. And whether that's with coloring itself and looking at your coloring and analyzing how we could approach things a little differently to help you feel happier with that result. Or maybe it's things like help with technology or help with feeling comfortable taking time for you or feeling confident getting started. I can't stress enough how important it is to use the help that's available. When we go to school, we don't learn from teachers and textbooks. Of course we learn from teachers. What am I saying? We don't learn from textbooks. We learn from teachers. That's why we have teachers. So I want you to use that extra help that's available. When we are learning, we can't often see what we need to adjust to feel happier with our result. That's something that comes with many, many years of practice. So even if you're comfortable with your results, still reach out and ask for tips anytime. We always look at helping you feel confident growing. And it's not about whether you've done something right or wrong, or maybe you're nervous to share your results. I've seen every mistake and I've made every mistake. All my focus is to help you love this hobby and to feel more confident, to feel like you can do this as well. So never, ever, ever feel stressed about reaching out. All I want to do is help you get all of these amazing benefits that coloring has brought me through my life. So I'm absolutely here to help, and we can talk through things like light source technique. I can see a lot from a photo. So it's absolutely, we're able to get as much assistance as we would sitting next to each other when you reach out. So absolutely, please do reach out anytime at all and let's chat. Even if you're yet to jump in with one of my paid lessons. I'm just doing her ear here now, applying on the inside where it would be darker. But I just wanted to bring that up about the free private tutoring because I think people get a little nervous to reach out. And our Facebook group is just for sharing with others who are learning like you. It's just for fun. Community is a huge thing, and I want to touch on that shortly as well. In terms of creating, I made a note of this because I saw a book online this morning and I wanted to bring this up really quickly. So I'm just going to stop while you all catch up because that will be my skin done. But they talked about how to defeat perfectionism. And basically they said, and I'm going to swear a little bit here, but they said, make shitty art every day. So if you make imperfect art, it gets you used to being okay with mistakes. When we're trying so hard for perfect, we have these really, really high standards and it doesn't make us work harder. It actually stops us from wanting to make because we end up feeling paralyzed, feeling like we have to get it all perfect, and then we feel like a big failure when we make a mistake. And that's half the reason I want you to play with crayons, because we can't get it perfect. You can see it's rough, you can see it's a little messy, but you can still see technique. You can see all that light source and everything coming into play. I'm still able to practice all of my art foundations, even with imperfection. So it's showing you I'm learning every single time I'm picking up my markers, pencils, or my crayons. So that's why I want you to move out of this perfectionism. But the book talked about the reason why it's important to create is we want to create to connect with others. Create to connect. That's the big, big thing. And socialization and community is something that we really take for granted these days. So many of us are so lonely and the world is so stressful, so harsh, so much news, politics, information that is dividing everyone, when really just scrolling on Facebook is not helping us feel part of community. Joining in, participating, and sharing your work is creating to connect. So don't ever feel nervous or worried or fear of judgment sharing in our community. But the most important thing that I want you to also think about is create to connect is not just about community. I want you to create to connect with yourself. Again, this is about taking time for you, doing something to be proud of, learning technique, learning skill, giving worth to you. So I just want you to think about that while we finish up her hair, and then that'll be me done with you here today. So just a quick question in the group. Marie, why do you go to the edges on the neck and not leave a white neck? Okay, so that's a reflective light I talked about before. Now, it's going to be quite creative license. When it comes to doing things like this, we typically wouldn't really have reflective light here unless she was really shiny. And sure, she might have put makeup on and a highlight to get that reflective edge. I know a lot of people actually do that with professional makeup because it highlights the jaw and makes that jawbone stand out. So effectively, if she's done professional makeup, having a highlight here helps to draw attention to your jawline, which is why they place the highlight in certain spots. They don't go and place highlight on the neck. However, in terms of creative license here, to make her head stand out from the neck, I'm adding in a little bit of that reflective light so my cast shadow there doesn't blend into the shadow of the face. It helps these two objects to look like there's more distance between them, so it is more pronounced. I could add something like this on the neck as well, but I'm drawing attention to this back area, which isn't really a focus of my piece. Every time you do one of my lessons, you'll notice that I keep talking about primary focus. When I do a class, all of my color choices, my texture choices, my pattern choices are made to communicate something. I want to draw people's eyes to the primary focus or the most important part of my image. So if I've done a coloring and I've got something exciting here, but this is this month's coloring class, for example. I'll chat about them at the end of our live, but I brought them with me today so we could chat. So this is my coloring of the markers class project for this month. Now I want to draw my eye in toward my girl, and you can see my color choices in the wings, in everything here is bringing me toward the center, which brings me to her face. That is the most important part of an image like this. It's your character. It's the personality. So everything here is drawing in. So when I do something like this, I want to think about, where do I want people's eyes to go when I look at this? Do I want it to go over here, or do I want to start bringing it up toward that eye level? That's the important part. So you do have a little bit of creative license to play with technique like this once you understand light source. So a little bit of, you get to pick and choose. Once you understand, you get to pick and choose to create your style. And that's the thing, when doing a class, you're going to learn a little bit of my style. And when you have practice and practice and practice and you have that confidence, then you get to make decisions based on the fact that you can do everything now, but then you get to pick and choose what part of these techniques you want to use to communicate what you're trying to tell. Hope that makes sense. Long-winded explanation, of course. All right. Oh, my sharpener is working. All right, I've sharpened up my crayon. I'm going to color up our hair, and then that's going to be us done today. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, I wanted to do hair because hair comes up in a lot of character images, and it's something that a lot of people really do, again, struggle with. Now, when we color hair, I want to think about that cast shadow that we've been going throughout today already. I want to not think of this as one big mass, but I want to break it down into individual sections so I can look at what's sitting on front, what's behind, how we have these little sections of hair creating the piece. So if I look at this, the best way to determine is to start at an outline. So I can start like at this section here, and then I just trace along each section and I try and figure out what the artist is communicating. So if I start here and I follow this line around, I reach an intersection point here. So the line that I was tracing continues just around, but the line where I've intersected just stops. Now we want to think about this in terms of three-dimensionality. If I've got a line, it doesn't just stop. What's happening is it's going underneath, and I can't see where that line is extending to anymore because it's under. Remember, when something is above, whatever is underneath gets the shadow on it. So that's going to say to me that this section here is sitting in front or above whatever is happening down here. So to show the difference between those levels, I grab my pencil back or my crayon and I do a cast shadow straight under the section that's above or in front. And that is how I start to break down hair. Now I make sure that my cast shadow is thick. It needs to be thicker than the stroke that I'm going to be using for my hair. So I'm basically going to just trace around all of the hair, breaking it down into these sections. Now again, you do get a little bit of that creative license as well. You can always decide where you want the shadows to be laid and what you want to communicate. And that's such a fun thing about coloring as well. That's why I love it. And many illustrators can't color and many colorists can't illustrate. It's a completely different skill set, but you get to be in control of the image. You get to decide what you're going to communicate here, which gives you that freedom, that creativity to play. And you can see I'm just breaking down all of these sections now, applying a nice big thick cast shadow around them. Now again, if any of these things that I go through today feel overwhelming or you're not quite sure, you can always reach out for help after this lesson or write it in the comments and I'll make sure that I go back and read them all as well. But I want to gently remind you that it'll take time to learn these techniques and theories. If it's hard today, totally fine. It was hard for me when I started as well. The thing is, it's like when you start a job, your first day, you're just like, whoa, information overload, and I'm not taking anything in, and all I'm doing is just the bare basics. That's okay, because day 2, it makes a little bit more sense, and you go, yeah, I remember that. Day 3, even more sense. It starts to kick in, and you're going, okay, I understand what they're trying to say now. Now I'm trying to emulate that. Now I'm thinking about what they've told me, and I can process that information a little more clearly. So that, again, that's why I've got the monthly lessons, because the idea is it's forcing a little bit of repetition, a little bit of practice, all different objects, but we cycle back through the important ones. So we do animals, nature, characters often, because it's giving you regular practice. And the more you do that, the more you repeat those key concepts, the more it starts to make sense. So even as we do this today, if you've done characters before and you're going, this isn't really that new, that's great, because it means now you can actually focus on what I'm saying rather than holding on for dear life. You're able to process this information and start to apply it and to think about it. So instead of just copying where I'm placing all of these shadows, you can start going, why am I placing a shadow here? Why is she doing that? And the more you start thinking about that, the more it becomes easier to start applying these techniques after class as well. You can see there I'm doing a nice big cast shadow around the bow, really making it look like that bow is sitting forward at the back of the hair here. I'm going to just leave it there. I think I'm just going to do the front piece. I'm conscious of how much time I'm taking with you all today, and I can't obviously speed up this video like I would in our classes as well. Sharpening that crayon again. Now I'm going to come in and do the texture. Now, when I do hair, this is the same for markers and pencils. What I see people will focus on is how fine their strokes are. And in the focus on how fine they can get the strokes, they tend to actually make them thicker and it lacks texture. What I want you to focus on here today is not how fine you can get this. That comes again with that control, practice, and time. What I want you to focus on is separating your strokes. So instead of this, I want you to lay down a stroke, lift and lay another. If we're doing this, it's going to help you to achieve texture even if your strokes are thick. It's less important with pencils and crayons, but this is more important with markers. This is why I really wanted to bring this up today, because it does come up a lot when people are trying to get those fine lines with their markers and they're saying it's not working and I can't get it fine enough. It's because we're not focusing on separating. Now, in terms of placement here, this is nice and easy here. I'm going to bring back my original. Essentially, it's what we went through at the start of the video. We're thinking about that light source. So what is popping out toward us? What is that light hitting first? And generally when I've got hair like this, the middle is popping up because the hair is sort of rounding like this. So if the middle is popping up toward us, that will be our highlight, and the two sides are curving down. That's going to be our shadow. So we start our strokes in our shadow area, flicking toward that highlight. I like to call these mountains versus valleys. So coming back to our image, make sure your crayon is nice and sharp. I start in my valley areas in toward the face, and I start curving my strokes so they match the shape of what I'm coloring. And I come in from each side. Now I'm just lifting my crayon slightly as I exit the stroke, which gives me that soft edge. Now I can work on building up more pressure in my shadow area so I can create the shadow, or I can do some strokes that are really nice and light as I get toward the center. So I get still that contrast between light and shade so I can communicate the light source, the highlight, midtone, and shadow. So this is a really nice piece of hair to practice on. It's nice and big. We can practice those strokes. I'm separating the strokes, leaving a gap between them as well. And you can see I've got that nice big highlight in toward the center. I'm using a bit more pressure as I apply this, so I can make the color a little darker than that of the skin. So again, playing with that value of color. So rather than trying to get this blend the same as the skin, I'm playing with it a bit more. When I work with monochromatic, I want each object to be slightly different. So when I come to the outfit, I would use a lot more pressure and a lot more of the darker color to make the blend down here darker than her skin. That's going to make more contrast, so each element stands out a little bit. You may need to sharpen your crayon a few times so you get that control. So if you want to learn more about hair, in this month's class, I'm really covering that in a lot of detail as well, so you can really learn how to apply this to any image as well. The whole point of the class is just to arm you with the same sort of techniques that we're going through today. And it's not about being a finished project. It's about how you can take these techniques away and apply them to your favorite projects after class. But rather than teaching you on an exercise sheet, we get to go through on a fun image like this, which makes it so much better for learning as well. So remember, a class, it doesn't actually matter what the image is. I understand it's always fun to do an image you really, really love, but it's just the vessel for learning. It's just the exercise. It's more about learning technique that you can apply on your images after the lesson is done. That's what's going to help you grow and improve. So I always mention this because it does come up a lot. And I used to learn dancing. It's the same as me walking out of a dance class because I don't love the song. We don't want to condition our learning on things like that because every song gives me a chance to practice. And especially if it's not my usual style, I'd be learning more about musicality, more about different ways that the song is made up, more different moves than I probably would usually do, which actually gives me a better experience than if I just stuck to my usual favorites. So it makes me dance better at my favorite by learning something that's not necessarily my favorite. Same with music. You may learn, say you're learning piano. Learning a song you have no desire to play actually going to teach you a lot of techniques to play better because you don't have the practice in that area. Oh, and I have just broken my crayon right near the end of the live. Let me try and broken it in my sharpener. See how I go. I had a feeling this would happen. There we go. See, he broke. And I want to just draw your eye to the fact here now, how much different does the face look now that I've started to do the hair? Because I've created context. Our brain understands what we're trying to communicate now. So even if you, when we finish this, if you scroll back in the video to where I'd only done the face and how funny she kind of looked at that point, it looks so different at this step now. And it will look even different again once all the hair and the outfit is done, because you're slowly filling in the gaps in the sheet here in the image. Our brain is processing that information so it starts to look more normal. So again, don't judge a piece that is half finished. Don't put it aside. Don't put it in a too hard basket. If you're really stressed, take 2 minutes and reach out to me privately and we can chat whether it's on track or what we need to adjust. But the key thing I want you to take away is finishing is what teaches you the most. So I'm going to leave this here. Ask any questions you like in the chat. I'll make sure I check before we finish up. But I'm going to leave the rest for you to color up now. We've really gone through a lot of technique, a lot of foundational theory already for you to practice after class. Now I just wanted to run through a few little things. If you want help with color blends, if you pop over to my website, kitandclouder.com, for those of you that don't know, I have hundreds of free blends for markers and pencils under the color blends chart tab. There's also marker to pencil conversion charts, coloring FAQs where every one of your questions is answered, supply recommendations, marker and pencil recommendations. I'm not affiliated with any brand of marker or pencil. That was really important to me when I started this out, is I didn't want to tell you what you should buy based on product that I would be getting for free. So all of my products I purchase myself and I make recommendations based on what I think is going to work best for you, both quality and financial wise. So you can ask me questions like that anytime and know that I'm not going to be giving you biased information. Now again, I do a monthly coloring project for markers and pencils, and they're both for beginners. Now this is this month's classes. I bought them both today to show you. So this is the pencils lesson. So we'll be going through long curly hair, so a lot more detail than we've done today. We've got all these beautiful, she's a dawn fairy. So I've got this transition in the dress, teaching you how to go between different color blends and create those smooth blends, but also how to create color schemes as well. And in our markers class, we've got the dusk fairy. So I'm looking at the darker skin tones, afro style hair, more wing techniques. This technique is really cool because you can use that for night skies behind any image as well. And again, two-tone dress, how to do folds and things like that. Now these classes look a little scary. They're very high detail, but I break everything down to beginner basics, just like I have here today. So you can absolutely start with these lessons. They are no more complicated than what we just went through. But the thing is, I take each little section and explain that very, very simply, just like we did here today. And it's not about how perfect you can get this. It's about just starting and learning these foundational tips that you can take away and apply to all different images after the class as well. So I hope to see some of you joining in with our monthly lesson. I really have a lot of fun creating these, and I spend a lot of time over how to teach the technique in the most simplest way that even if you've never colored before, you can still create artworks like this and still feel proud of your learning journey and what you are creating. Again, my classes come with free private tutoring, so I'm here to help. And truly, my main focus is just on helping you feel confident and loving your coloring as well. That's all I've ever wanted for you. And that's the whole focus of doing these lessons, is to help you let go and just embrace taking time for you in a stressful, busy life so you can slow down and have something special. Remember, it's not about how perfect you can get it, just like this here today. All I want you to focus on is not copying me, not getting it like mine. It's not the point of a class. The point of the class is taking this time for you and for you to grow in your own time and at your own pace. It's not a competition and it's not a race. And I really hope that learning with the crayons has taught you, I have imperfection, I have messiness, it's rough, but it's still the technique and I can still practice. And most importantly, I still took this time to take a break here today. I hope you are able to let go of a little bit of pressure. And I hope as you do with your coloring, if you make a big mistake and you get, like even on my original, these little like splotches all around here, but the big picture is she's still beautiful. Imperfection still is beautiful with our coloring. So I really hope that you just focus on enjoying the process. Now I'm just having a quick look at any one of your comments and questions. Feel free to ask anything at all before we wrap up here today. I love that Cheryl has gone out of her comfort zone and you know what you need to focus on in your character coloring. I think that's the main thing, is that if you just focus on technique and you just focus on what you are learning and taking away rather than how good it is, that's what's really going to help. So try, when you do your coloring, try never to say, oh, I messed up here, or it's not perfect. I see this so often in our group and I want to hug you all so much and just tell you, you don't need to say it's not perfect. It's not the point of doing this. The point is just to think about what you were taking away. How has that lesson helped you grow? Every practice is a step forward. So instead of saying, oh no, I did this wrong, I want you to say, okay, what have I learned? What have I learned here today? And what can I try differently next time? How can I employ this technique? How can I troubleshoot? And how can I just take the pressure off? That's all I want you to focus on. So don't say, oh, I didn't use the same colors as Elise. I didn't get this right, or this is wrong. Leave all of that out. Instead, say, this is what I learned here today. Be proud of what makes you you. That is so important. I just want to, I write these art therapy posts in the group every week, and I just hope that they get through to you, because I see you all at your best, and I think at your worst, and at your happiest and at your saddest. And I just want you to know it's all going to be okay. And what you're creating is just perfectly you. So enjoy this opportunity and the progress and the process, and that's what's going to help you improve. People asking about how I remove the dust from my pencils. So I'm using one of the Kit and Clouder pencil dusters. I had these designed especially for us. They are extremely soft. They're not a makeup brush. I had them made specially, so I picked the fibers that it would remove things like the pencil dust from your page without it sticking down. So I moved recently and I found a bag of these. They were sold out. I found a bag in the garage, so I popped a few back up on in the shop. So if you just go to kitandclouder.com/shop, you'll be able to find these there. And there's just a few left, and I'm happy to ship them worldwide for free as well. So you can find them over there. While you're in the shop, you'll also find all of my free classes. I forgot to chat about them. So there's lessons that I do as well if you'd like to play and learn a bit more technique. Okay, so I don't see any other real questions at the moment, but I'll make sure that I check in the comments. So if something pops up, you can or ask there or ask in our group, and I'll make sure to get back to you. So I'm always checking the group every single day. Share what you're working on, share your coloring, let me know what you thought. It's so uplifting to me. I love seeing it. It just makes me smile, and to get to know so many of you as well. So thank you again so much for joining me today. I really hope that you've enjoyed doing this live color along with me. I've loved connecting with you all and reading your comments on the screen as I'm doing this. I really, really love and appreciate all of you so much. So thank you again for watching. I hope you found this helpful to break down some of those art foundations and some of the art therapy and self-care tips that are really important to me as well. So I'll see you all over in the classrooms.